All right, welcome back to algebravideos.com. 2x plus 1 minus 3x plus 5 equals 2. How do we solve for x? Well, first thing we want to do, like all algebra problems, is don't worry about these big scary words up here. The chapter title, the name, doesn't matter. So math is the same in all languages. So you can just forget about these big scary words at the beginning of the chapter. And that's why we have the shark and the dinosaur here, just to kind of make fun of these big scary words. And just like you can ignore the shark and the dinosaur up here in the top, you can ignore the big scary words too. So that saves you a lot of time and effort. I'm sure you can thank me later. The first step here is to combine the terms that look alike. Combine the things that look alike. So put the things that look alike together. And that'll make this problem shorter and easier. So right here, the first term is an x term. And here's another x term. Well, these two terms are very similar. So why don't we just combine them and shorten this problem? And that'll make things easier for us. So 2x minus 3x, what does that simplify to? That simplifies to just negative 1 times x. And then the rest of this, we'll just leave it the same. So plus 1, I'll just rewrite that. And then the plus 5, I'll just rewrite that. And then over on the right side of the equation, on the right side of the equal sign, there's a number 2, and I'll just rewrite that. So we made our problem shorter by combining thingies that look the same, right? Combining terms that look the same. So we combine the x term. Let's see if we can do it again and make this problem even shorter. Well, look what we have here. We've got a number 1 and a number 5. We could combine those two into a single term, 6, right? 1 plus 5 is 6. So we could just rewrite this equation and combine those two terms. So let's try that. First, I'm just going to rewrite the negative 1 times x out here. No change there. Plus, and now I'm going to combine these terms. 1 plus 5. Oh, that's 6. So I can just rewrite that as a 6. And then, over here on the right side, there's a 2, and the 2 doesn't change. So now negative 1x plus 6 equals 2. Well, I'd like to get rid of this 6, so I'm going to subtract a 6 from both sides. There's a little rule in math that says you can do anything you want to either side of an equation as long as you do the same thing to both sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 6 because I want to get rid of this 6, right? So if you have 6 and you want to get rid of it, just subtract 6. But you have to follow the little rules of math, and that just says, hey, you got to do the same thing to both sides. So this is like maybe two little siblings, right? Maybe a brother and sister, or 2 sisters, or 2 brothers, and you give one of them a little candy treat, and the other one feels left out, right? So you give both of them a treat, and you treat them both the same way, and they both feel good. So just like you have to give a same candy to 2 siblings, you do the same thing to both sides of the equation. So now, if we look, this 6 minus 6, when we combine that, that's going to be 0. Isn't that nice? So let's rewrite this and let this term go to 0. So I'm just going to bring down the negative 1x. No change there. Plus 6 minus 6 is 0, right? So now you can see why we did what we did, because we wanted that to go to 0. That makes that easier and easier. And that equals, on the right side, 2 minus 6. Well, that's negative 4. So now I'll just rewrite it without the 0. Negative 1 times x. And we'll just leave out the 0. We don't need it now. Equals negative 4. Well, now I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. I want to get rid of this negative 1 out here to the side of the x. I always want to get x by itself. That's what we're trying to do. So let's put on some pretty colors here. And how do we do this? I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. So I'm going to divide the left side by negative 1. And whatever I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other side of the equation. So I'm also going to divide it by negative 1. And now when we rewrite this equation, a negative 1 divided by negative 1 right here, negative 1 divided by negative 1 is just 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. So all that term simplifies to just 1. And the x, this x right here, I'm just going to bring it down. Nothing's changing there, right? So that becomes 1 times x equals, and on the right side, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So 4 divided by 1 is 4, or negative 4 divided by negative 1 is 4. Two ways of saying the same thing. So now 1x equals 4. And we really don't need that 1 out to the side. 1x equals 4 is just the same as x equals 4. And so that is our solution. We got x by itself on one side of the equation. And along the way, we just followed the rules of combining like terms and then doing some things to both sides of the equation until all the numbers that were on the side with x canceled out to 0. Now we could just stop right here, but if you'd like to make sure that you got the right answer, instead of turning in your test or your quiz or your exam and hoping you got the right answer, there's a way to check and make sure before you turn it in. That way you know you got 100% on your quiz. And that is to take this solution of x equals 4 and plug it back into the original equation. Wherever there's an x, you just plug in a 4 and see if you get equal numbers on both sides. So let's try that. I'm rewriting the equation over here on the right side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the number 4 wherever there's an x. So let's do that. First, I'm going to rewrite the number 2. That's this first 2. And then for this x, I'm going to plug in the number 4. So it's going to be 2 times 4 plus 1 minus 3 times, here's that x again, so we're going to plug in our solution of 4. Okay, plus, and now this final 5 here, plug in the 5, equals, on the right side, I'm just going to rewrite this 2, equals 2. Okay, so now we just have an easy math problem here. It's all numbers. We just need to simplify it. So the first part here is 2 times 4. That's going to be 8. Plus 1 minus this 3 times 4. That's a 12. Plus the 5 right here. Just bring down that 5. Equals, and on the right side, this 2 right here is still there. So we're just going to rewrite the 2. So now we have 8 plus 1 minus 12 plus 5 equals 2. So I'm just going to simplify these first two terms. 8 plus 1, and that is a 9. 8 plus 1 is 9, right? And then the second two terms here is minus 12 and plus 5. I'm just going to simplify that to a negative 7 or minus 7. And that equals, on the right side is our 2, which never changes over there. And now simplifying one last time. 9 minus 7 is 2, and that equals 2. So, because we got the same number on both sides, our equation held true when we plugged in the number 4 for x. And so that's a big giant check mark there. That means that our solution of x equals 4 was correct. And if this was not the same on both sides, we got something that did not equal each other. In this case, 2 equals 2. If we got two numbers that were not equal, then we made a mistake somewhere, and we just need to go back and check our work and maybe start over from the beginning. But we got 2 equals 2, two numbers that equal each other, and I'm going to give us an A+.
Thumbs up and subscribe. For more videos like this, check out algebravideos.com.